of 10 sleeps out from the Berlin Marathon, which means I'm slowly losing my mind. I'm in a good spot physically, and we need to just get there. But we have a lot of time to kill in the meantime, which means time to go crazy, time to worry that I'm getting injured, time to worry that I'm getting sick, time to overreact and be convinced that either one of those two things are happening, and time to get stressed for no particular reason by probably putting too much on my plate, actually, so that is the particular reason. But anyway, welcome to the taper. It is Thursday, the 19th of September at the time of filming. I'm gonna take you through where my head's at, where my body's at, where my tapers tend to go, and how I'm trying to be better this time around. And I'm gonna try as well to help you answer the question, how do I taper for a marathon? How do I do that? What's the formula? Is there a formula? If you watched my long run video last week, how long should my longest long run be? There's some clues in there. And like anything with running, it's kind of individual. More on that later. But first, I need to go and run. Today's agenda is 8 miles this morning, 4 miles this afternoon, which is less than I would normally do on a Thursday. Only a little bit, actually. Let's take this journey together to being the definition of calm, collected, professional, relaxed, owning the taper, strolling through it like nothing can beat me down. And hopefully, definitely, no, I'm putting my foot down, not reacting like I was approximately 24 to 48 hours ago when I was convinced that I was injured. Googling stress fractures, muscle tears, all the things you're not meant to do, and just freaking out. In fact, I'll show you what my brain was doing constantly during that time when we were driving back up to Manchester from being down south after my session that didn't end too well. Sat in the car. Just roughly, kind of similar to that, probably worse, to be honest. I love running. Running's so great. All right, let's go run. Before we go for a run, I think we should maybe define what a taper is, just in case anyone watching is unsure or completely in the dark. What is a taper, and specifically a marathon taper? You might have heard people talk about this if they're preparing for a marathon or even another race, because you can taper for other races too, not to the same degree. Or maybe more, if it's an ultra or an Ironman, maybe you're tapering like 4 weeks out. Typically, a marathon taper is reducing the volume of your training 2 to 3 weeks out from the marathon gradually. We are tapering down, not to 0, but it's like 3 weeks out, you're gonna reduce a little itty bitty tiny little bit. 2 days out, it's gonna be way lower than your typical Friday would be. It's essential if you wanna be on your A game to be able to run and perform well on that given day, because you're freshening up. You are recovering from the training you've done, from fatigue. Your body is repairing from that training and repairing from the damage, the intentional damage that we've done. And by exerting yourself less, you're also replenishing your fuel stores. The closer you get to that race, you're using less energy to save that energy, if you like, keep those carbohydrate stores high and have more energy. That is the goal. If you overdo it, you might be left feeling stale, perhaps losing a tiny bit of fitness and just feeling really sluggish by bringing your taper in too loudly. And if you overdo it, if you underdo the taper but overdo the running, then you're not gonna feel fresh, you're not gonna feel replenished, you're not gonna feel ready to go. As well as reducing the volume of the training gradually, week by week, as you get into the taper, you're also gonna try and make an extra effort to relax and taper the mind, body, and soul, if you like. You're gonna wanna continue to do all the good things you've been doing throughout the block, hopefully. Eating well, fueling well, hydrating well, sleeping well, ticking all those boxes so that the 1% are there and you're reducing any likelihood of getting sick, injured, as much as you can before the big dance. And hopefully, you're not gonna lose your mind in the process, although I haven't cracked that part yet. I think the reason I find the taper so challenging, and probably why a lot of us find it really challenging, is it's not the physical nature of doing less and your legs feeling in a funk or out of sync because of that. It's the psychological nature of knowing that you're on the runway now. The start line is around the corner, and everyone always tells you that during the taper, the work is done. The hay is in the barn. There's nothing more you can do, and you have to firstly accept that because it's true. Nothing you do in the last 2 to 3 weeks is gonna make a huge difference to improving your marathon, but it can hurt it. Doing too much in the taper can't make your marathon, but it can break it. And don't get me wrong, doing not enough in the taper can too. So it's this fine balancing act of trying to get it just right. And you're constantly worrying, am I doing too much? Am I not doing enough? You're also well aware that all you can kind of do is wait and hope that nothing bad happens in all of these days where there's an opportunity for something to go wrong. Am I gonna pick up a virus? Am I gonna roll my ankle? Am I gonna get food poisoning? Am I gonna not sleep enough? Am I gonna pull a muscle? All of these worries that are somewhat outside of your control, you could be unlucky, are there to just fester and take your energy away from what the taper is really for, which is recuperating, resting, bringing your energy levels up and giving your body what it needs to be in the best possible position it can be on the one day that matters. And it might be in that best possible position, and it might not. And that's the fine art of the taper. We have to figure it out, which is difficult because there just should be a manual for us to just read what the formula is, complete the formula, successful taper. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. I promised I would tell you how I'm doing, how my taper is going. I guess I'll give you an insight as well as to how my tapers have changed over the years, because I'm going into my 4th marathon at Berlin, so I'd say I'm moderately experienced at the marathon. I'm by no means a veteran. I don't want to, put myself in that box because I still feel like I have a lot to learn. But my taper has changed quite a lot. I think for my first marathon, and probably my second as well, I definitely overdid the taper. I came down too much. My peak week in my first marathon block was 81 miles in the Seville block, and I came down to 51 on race week. But considering that almost half of that is the marathon, 26.2, I think I overdid it. A lot of the time you'll see the last week with the marathon in it being almost equivalent to the week before. Some people that are on really low mileage, race week will actually be higher, but if you take out the marathon day, that's 26.2 miles, squash that, and look at the 6 days before it, it's less than the equivalent of the 7 or 6 days the week before that. This time around, my peak week has been 108 in this block, and I've sat over 100 for 4 weeks of the training block that I've done. I think 12 weeks in total, 10 weeks out in flag, 2 weeks at home for the taper. I do a 3-week taper. Some people do a little bit more, some people do a little bit less, but the first week is, I'd say, hardly noticeable. I dropped down from 100 the week prior to the taper starting to doing 89.5, which was last week at the time of filming, and that's higher than my lowest week in the block. I did 88 miles in week 5 of the block. I also did 68 and 82 in the first week, so 89 is still higher than those weeks, but it's the lowest week for 5 weeks. So it's a noticeable shift down from going 108, 100 to 89. I felt pretty good off that, and if we could have just stayed there, I think I'd have kept feeling good. Not that I don't feel good physically, I think it's just, that mental element that I mentioned earlier. This week is shaping up to be somewhere between 75 to 80 miles. And next week, which is race week, I am gonna plan to finish up around 70. Might be slightly under, might be slightly over. It's a ballpark for a reason because we need to feel it out. There's no point in religiously shooting for that specific number at the expense of, oh, I think I might feel better doing a mile less today or a mile more there, you know? But that's a lot more aggressive in terms of volume than I've done in the past. And what you can do by overdoing the taper and over tapering is just leaving yourself feeling like you haven't moved and your routine is all out of funk and you can feel a little bit stale and not making the most of that freshness in the legs. You've kind of not done anywhere near what you're remotely used to. But you do need to taper. It's difficult. It's a difficult balance. I'm going to try and help you figure out how to get that balance right. And the reason I want to use my laptop here is because I want to pull out a few formulas that are out there, and then I want you to question them alongside your training. If you're wanting to use this for a future taper or a taper that you're currently in to kind of sense check it, I don't want you to just take these numbers as gospel, okay? So this is one from Runners Connect, which is a pretty well-respected website with lots of great running advice on there, lots of kind of coaching insights, training sessions, information on race strategies. And I want to clarify, I don't think this information is wrong. I just want to encourage everyone to individualize their own taper, because you would individualize your own training, your own race plan. This is meant to be something to kind of supplement your own perspective, because you know your body, you know your training, and I think it's important to factor that in. They're saying 3 weeks before the race, reduce your weekly volume, so your total mileage, the total number of miles or Ks you run in the week, by 85 to 90% of your maximum. Let's see if I did that, shall we? 83. I did 83% of my maximum week for week 1 of my taper. That's just to give you an insight in going outside of that range. It's okay. And they've given an example here saying if you're running 50 miles a week and you need to cut out 7 miles, you can do that by giving yourself an extra rest day if you want to, or by cutting 2 to 3 miles off 2 to 3 runs. I really like they've put that in there because it gives you the option. Some people would prefer to add in an extra rest day, and that's a totally fine way of doing it. Other people would rather keep their routine of run, workout, their typical rest day, run, workout, run, long run. And they don't want to add an extra rest day in there, but they want to start the taper. So do it the way that you think is going to work best for you and your body. The other things to note for week 1, keep the intensity the same. Keep your easy runs at the same pace, don't slow down. Keep your workouts at the same intensity. If you normally do threshold or marathon pace work or sprints, whatever it is, keep that spread of intensity the same. Don't go changing that. And you definitely want to reduce your long run, because the long run, 3 weeks out from the marathon, is actually 2 weeks out, or maybe less if your race is on the Saturday. So that's where it's important to kind of pay attention to the taper being this shaped, or this shaped. It's like a funnel, and that long run is further along on that funnel. So just bring it down a little bit. Then we get to 2 weeks before the goal race, and they're suggesting on Runners Connect to go for 70 to 75% of your maximum. Again, I'm going to compare this to my plan for this week. 75% of 108 is 81. That's actually pretty bang on, and 70% is 75. And this week, my goal is 75 to 80 miles. So I'm following this. But that's not to say that if I was doing 70 that wouldn't be okay as well. You just don't want to like drastically shift from those numbers. I think this is a pretty good guide. I'm not adding in an extra rest day this week. I'm keeping my same routine, and I'm doing it by shaving off some of those runs. I'm cutting a double, so I'm doing 1 less double day. My long run on Sunday, because that's a week out from the marathon, is drastically reduced. I'm gonna be doing 14 to 15 miles compared to my typical, which is like 20 to 22. So I'd say keep those elements in there as well. Now, they're recommending 1 medium intensity workout, and I think you can go off that, but I'm also sticking to my typical routine. So I have a workout on Tuesday and I have a workout on Friday, and they will be the same intensity that they always are, but the volume is slightly reduced. Give yourself the freedom to decide to do 1 workout, 1 medium intensity workout rather than your usual intensity, or to stick with what you usually do but bring the volume down a little bit. Looking at this, it's important to remember as well, like, where are you coming from? I know people that do 3 workouts a week. Dropping to 1 medium intensity workout is a huge shift compared to doing 2 of those workouts, or 2 hard workouts and 1 medium intensity workout, or keeping all 3 in and bringing them down. So long as you are doing something to bring that volume down, you're gonna be good. And then the week of the race. This is where I would say it becomes even more individual. Some people will like to take 2 rest days on race week. Some people will religiously take 1 on the Monday. Other people like to rest the day before the race. I like to do a shakeout and keep my legs moving. Again, I'm not taking a rest day next week, and that's something that's different for me. In all of my marathons so far, I've taken a rest day on race week. I don't feel like I need that, and throughout this block, I've not taken many rest days. days. It's not to say that I haven't had some very easy, very low volume days. I'll go out for sort of a 20-30 minute jog instead of a rest day because that's what makes me feel better. So look back through your training diary and take a note of what makes you feel good and let that inform what you do this week. They've recommended reducing your volume to 50 to 60% of your normal. For me, that would be 54 miles as 50% of 108 up to 64.8. And I'm going to be doing more than that. I'm going to be going to 70 miles roughly, which is 65% of my maximum week. And I think that's fine. In the past, I've definitely gone for that 50% rule, if not more. Last time around in Houston, I did 56 miles on race week. And they've also got very niche here, so they've recommended doing one mini fartlek session, and they have actually recommended to run the day before the marathon, saying that it will help promote blood flow in your legs and stop you from feeling so nervous. I agree with that, but I also think that if you swear by a rest day the day before, then do that. I disagree with the mini fartlek. I don't think that that's a bad thing to do, but I just think that for everyone, it's not a one size fits all. I'll be doing the same workout that I always do on race week on Tuesday, which is some K reps at threshold. I'll do 4 or 5 of them, and then 4 to 6 by 400, a little bit faster to get some speed in the legs and just to feel like I'm turning over and getting some intensity in there. If you want to do a 5K tempo, or if you want to do 10 by 2 minutes, anything that you want to do is fine, so long as it's a little bit shorter than you've done throughout the rest of the block, and crucially it's what you think is going to make you feel good. Not to spend this whole taper fretting and giving ourselves the nervous sillies, which is what I feel like I'm doing right now, which is why I'm gonna go for my second run, because funnily enough, running helps. So stick to your routine if you can. Yep, maybe it's 5 miles instead of 10, but keep your timings the same. Make sure you're fueling yourself sufficiently. Try to find some calm. And when I get back from my run, I'm gonna spend a few minutes answering some quick fire questions that you guys have sent in about the taper and how to deal with it. We're back, and I'm gonna do a little bit of post-run mobility floor work whilst I answer some of your taper questions. Can you tell I'm stiff? Quite a few. I'm gonna pick out 8. I'm gonna keep it short. Famous last words. Okay, this is a good one. I feel like this is quite relevant. What happens if you feel some pain or the beginning of an injury? How to deal with injury during the taper? Well, if you're actually injured, then you deal with it the same as you do any other injury. Unfortunately, your body comes first and you have to rest, which may mean canning the marathon, depending on how serious the injury is. However, I feel like we can get a lot of paranoid pains during the taper. I'm no exception to this. I've had pains that I've Googled and decided have been stress fractures or muscle tears during tapers, and they haven't been. So as much as you can, treat any pain the same as you would outside of a taper in a training block. Like, be smart with it, but try not to overreact. Do everything you can. That's all you can do, doing what's within your control. So if it's serious enough, then go and see a physio, you know, rest it, ice it, get some professional advice, because ultimately Googling doesn't help you, and blindly carrying on if it's a legit pain doesn't help you either. Ooh, another good question. How much should lifting be tapered? So if you're doing strength work that involves, you know, going to the gym and doing a legit gym lift, well, this is what I do. I tend to keep my lift the same in the first week, 3 weeks out. 2 weeks out, I reduce the volume. So I tend to do supersets. Instead of 3, I'll do 2. And then the week of the marathon, I don't do my gym. I just do a bit of mobility work and perhaps a nice little bit of running tailored yoga. That said, you can just take gym work out altogether if you want to. It depends how much you want to stick with your usual routine and how much that helps you. I've canned gym sessions throughout the marathon block on and off when I've been tired, because I've prioritized recovery over getting the strength work in. Your body will hold on to strength for longer than you think it will. So if you've done strength work for 3 months and then you don't do that strength work for a few weeks, it's not like your body's gonna lose that as quickly as it will your cardiovascular fitness. Just make sure you're not lifting close to the race, because you don't wanna have DOMs. Similar to the injury one, someone's asked how to combat taper sickness. So unlucky if you get sick during the taper. Firstly, the taper itself should reduce the likelihood of you getting sick because you're putting less load on your body, so it's not having to work as hard to recover from as higher volume training, so you should be less likely to get sick. But if you do, again, it's working as hard as you do when you get sick at any other time to try and recover as quick as you can. Rest, fluids, fuel, sleep. There's no magic pill, there's no quick way to get over a sickness. It's just a little bit of luck and good timing and doing everything you can. Someone has asked, should beginners taper longer than more experienced runners? I don't think longer in terms of further out. I think if you're working on ratios and percentages, you get a decent benefit from cutting, you know, if it's 50% of your volume on race week, 75% the week before, it's going to be felt in the same way. No, I don't think you need to taper longer out if you're a beginner. I think you'll get the same benefit from doing the same length of time of a taper. This person said, why is running suddenly so hard all of a sudden? 10 days out from Berlin, panic. Okay, no, we're not going to panic. That's what we're not going to do. Remember what I said earlier? Your mind is playing tricks with you. If you felt fit before starting the taper, you're still fit, and running feels hard because you're probably thinking about that really hard race that's coming up that's going to be really tough. Don't panic, try to stay calm, prioritize things that fill your cup up and give you good energy and help you feel rested, and know that you only need to feel good on race day. If you don't feel good right now, that's fine. It's actually fine. Lots of questions about nutrition and diet. Someone said, do you eat the same amount of calories during the taper? Is there a diet plan you follow? I personally don't track my calories or my nutrition. I eat to how I feel. If I'm hungry, I eat, and I try to make sure I'm getting enough protein, carbohydrates, healthy fats, etc. I wouldn't make a concerted effort to eat less during the taper because you're doing less, because you're trying to make sure that you're well fueled to recover from the training that's still in your legs from the weeks gone by. And the closer you get to the marathon, you're then carb loading as well to make sure that that marathon is well fueled, and you've got those glycogen stores, which is the primary energy source you're going to be using for the marathon. For me, it's intuitive. If you do track your calories, then I would try and keep things roughly the same as what you normally do, but obviously don't feel like you're kind of force feeding yourself if you're not hungry to try and match what you're doing before. Just let it happen would be my advice, but definitely don't intentionally cut down because that could be where you're going to raise your risk of an injury or getting sick. I'm joined by my assistant. Hello? Have you come to offer some knowledge? Excuse me, sir? Clearly not. Should I be doing speed work during my taper? If you normally do speed work, yes. I would count speed work as any kind of intervals that are faster than marathon pace, and I actually would recommend doing speed work unless you've never done it before, which would be weird because I feel like it's quite an important part of training for most distances, whether it's just strides or some interval training, some fartleks, some, you know, shorter reps. It can help your legs feel good actually by going faster than marathon pace in some of your workouts within the taper, and can kind of help flush out some of that sluggish feeling. So definitely don't cut speed work out, just factor it into the general tapering of your volume. How do you keep your mind busy during the extra time that you would normally be running? To be honest, I don't think I notice gaining that much time back. I think in my peak week I was running for like 13 hours and something minutes in terms of like, that's what Strava told me was the time spent running. Obviously there's time going to and from training, and maybe this week it'll be like 10 hours. I don't really notice that 3 hours coming back, to be honest. I still feel pretty busy, and for me it helps to keep myself busy so long as I'm not adding things in that exert me too much, like taking up a new sport or like going kayaking or on a hike. I do some active recovery, like I'll go for a walk in the morning, go get a coffee if I'm not going for a run that morning, and I try and keep my mind busy and off the unhelpful thoughts of like worrying about the race, the nerves, what's my time gonna be, you know, worrying about the things I can't control. When I find myself drifting to that, I try and have something there ready to pull me back to the present, whether that's literally thinking about what I'm doing in this very moment and what I can see, hear, feel, doing some mindfulness, or reminding myself that these feelings are natural, I'm also excited, and worrying about it is not going to help me, and then moving on, taking action to do something else. Surrounding yourself with people that give you good energy and things that make you feel calm and grounded in this kind of waiting room time is probably the best thing that you can do. And be kind to yourself and know that it's normal to feel like you're going a little bit insane, and it's quite hard to stay calm in the taper because you've worked really hard for this, and this is now the time where your brain is going to play tricks on you. It's kind of hardwired to think negatively, but you can do something to kind of pivot yourself back onto a helpful path. So with 10 sleeps to go until the race at the time of filming, it's going to be a lot closer to the race by the time this video comes out. Maybe I'll even be racing the race. Is this going to come out on Sunday?
Nope.
Either way, if you're racing the Berlin Marathon, good luck. Maybe I'll see you out there. If you're cheering, please say hi. Please give us all a cheer. And if you're tapering for another marathon or training for another marathon coming up, I wish you the best for it. And make sure, whether you're in the training part or the tapering part, you remember to love the grind.